Okay. What has happened to? Okay. Okay, so we are back in business, as they say. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly review the method that we've been practicing, and then we can field some questions and then resume the practice. Let me try to find my way back. Oops. Okay, let me share the screen. I'm always lost trying to find. Okay. Okay, so we are following now the meditation on the parts of the body. And let us look first, before I come to the list, let us look at the Satipatthana Sutta itself. I think I have to stop sharing and then reshare again. Okay. Okay, so now we want to look at the list of the parts, the way this meditation subject is explained in the Satipatthana Sutta. Do you see the text of the Satipatthana Sutta? The heading is Foulness, the Bodily Parts.
Yes, Bhante.
Okay. Okay, so this is the actual text of the sutta. And again, it's speaking, because the Buddha is speaking to the monk, so he speaks in terms of a monk, but we could just say the meditator reviews this. Here it says, imang eva kayang, which means the same body, that is one's own body. One reviews it up from the soles of the feet and down from the top of the hair. Actually, I like to start from the top of the head, go down to the soles of the feet, and then go from the soles of the feet back up to the top of the head, bounded by skin, as full of many kinds of impurity thus. And then it lists the original text has 31 parts, and the later texts like Patisambhita Magga, Visuddhi Magga, and so on add the brain. And so we get the 32 parts, which in the sutta are simply listed, but the commentarial method is to break them up into groups. My division is a little different from the Visuddhimagga, since the Visuddhimagga puts the kidneys together with the flesh, sinews, bones, and bone marrow in order to have a group of 5. But it seems to me, since the kidneys are an internal organ, that it fits more naturally with the heart, liver, diaphragm, and so on. So we divide these into groups of mostly 5 and 6, and we run through them in direct order, reverse order, then direct order going into the next group, and so on in a kind of serpentine pattern. And one of my students told me that this method is a method that apparently derives from the style in which the Brahmins did the Vedic recitations. And then the text uses a simile, which illustrates the way this takes place. And what's interesting also is to note that the verb that's used here is reviews, or we might also translate this as examines. And so in the other, for example, in the section on mindfulness of breathing, when breathing in, one knows I breathe in one knows I am breathing in long. When breathing out long, one knows I am breathing out long. And with regard to the postures, when walking, one knows I am walking. When sitting, one knows I am sitting. But here, the verb used is reviews, pachavekati, which could also be translated examines. So it's an examination of the body. And then comes the simile, just as if there were a bag with an opening at both ends, full of many kinds of grain. And then it enumerates different types of grain: hill rice, red rice, beans, peas, millet, and white rice. And then a person with good eyes would to open the bag and look inside, and he would be able to distinguish the contents of that, the grains within that bag, distinguishing this is the hill rice, that's the red rice, these are the beans, the peas, the millet, the white rice. So in the same way, one reviews this body as full of many kinds of impure substances and so on. And one thing I should say about this meditation, the way it's treated sometimes in the Theravada tradition, it's explained in a way to develop a sense of repulsion towards the body or revulsion towards the body, which if it's practiced in that way by somebody with an unhealthy temperament, a kind of disposition towards self-loathing, it could generate unwholesome states of mind rather than a wholesome state of mind. So a person who already has a self-denigrating attitude towards their body And then they start looking at the body in this way, we could develop even stronger hatred and abhorrence of the body. And in some cases, even in the Buddha's time, that led a number of monks to commit suicide because they were so filled with disgust towards the body. So the way I like to approach this is to see it as a kind of detached, objective, analytical view of the body. One is not aiming to generate a feeling of revulsion towards the body, but rather a sense of disillusionment, a literal sense of disillusionment, of breaking up the illusion of beauty and attractiveness in the body, and instead turning towards disenchantment, dissolving the enchantment with the body, particularly the bodies of others towards whom one might be sexually attracted. And in this way, the meditation becomes the antidote to sensual lust, particularly to sexual desire. But you can look at the body from another angle and I mean, I reflect in this way that in some way the body it's a marvelous organism in that all of these organs perform their functions automatically without, I don't have to interfere with them, control them, give them instructions. The heart goes on beating so many times a minute, every minute of the day through the whole course of life. I don't have to dictate to the heart, you should keep on beating. And the heart never protests and says, I want a vacation, give me a 2-week vacation. It just goes on beating on its own. The liver has so many functions, I don't even know what they are, but it performs them all beautifully. The stomach, when I eat a meal, it digests the food on its own. I don't have to give it instructions to digest. If I get wounded, if I cut myself, the flesh and the skin will heal. I don't have to supervise the healing of the wound. But the Buddha expounds this meditation subject, enumerating the bodies in this way for the purpose of providing us with a method for gaining this perception of the unattractive nature of the body in order to dispel sensual craving. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Okay, I see Miriam, but less. Okay, yesterday I was getting the hands in a different way. Okay, Miriam.
Thank you, Bhante. I have a couple of questions.
I think because I'll give you a chance to ask one question now. If we have something
Okay.
after the others ask, then you can ask the other questions, because otherwise we'll take up all of the time with questions. So choose the most important question you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
With regard to the 32 body parts that we are practicing,
Yeah.
can that also be used in terms of getting rid of the me, mine, and I kind of a thing? The way we look at the body parts, like this hair of the body is not mine, I can't control it, is going to get old, and basically look at the 3 characteristics of it. Is not consistent, therefore is not me, mine, or I.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. In fact, when we come to the talk, and I'm going to deal with that point in the talk, but definitely that is the case.
Okay.
But
Thank
in
you.
this case, let's say one could use the meditation on the parts of the body for that purpose, but here the particular intention is to draw out and to make explicit and visible the unattractive nature of the parts of the body for the purpose of dissolving sensual craving. But one can use the body, the parts of the body as a means for developing insight into the impersonal or selfless nature of the body.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go to Young.
Bhante, could I make a quick announcement? We had to, for the participants, we have to disable the group chat feature because sometimes it gets a little too much for the other participants. So I know you had posed, couple of you had posed couple of questions. If you still have that, please raise your hand and ask that. If you still cannot, please send an email to our boss, the help.
Yeah,
email.
I won't be checking the chat box. That gets too confusing for me. Okay, Young can go with the question.
Thank you, Bhante. May I ask a question regarding the 32 body parts? I have noticed that the list does not include the reproductive organs, and I could guess the intention behind for the exclusion, considering it is an effective practice for calming sensual lust.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when we practice for experiencing the whole body, like today,
Yeah.
I feel that it is somewhat unnatural not to include the reproductive organs. What shall I think and do, Bhante?
For doing the meditation on the unattractive nature of the body, we just choose these 32 parts. There are other parts that are not, I'm not sure that the reproductive organs have been omitted in order not to stimulate sensual lust, because there are other parts that are not mentioned. The pancreas isn't mentioned, the gallbladder is not mentioned, the bladder is not mentioned. In the original list, even the brain was not mentioned. And it's enough to have just a selection, and there are many fluids of the body that are not mentioned. So it's enough just to have a selection of parts that are sufficient to generate the sense of the unattractive or repulsive nature of the body. Yeah, so don't have to try to include everything within the body, but just choose a selection of the organs and tissues mentioned here.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, then we have Joanna.
Hello, Bhante. Thank
Yeah.
you for this. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, great. I think it's sort of been touched on, but I just find that I'm incredibly resistant to thinking about the body as sort of full of impurities or repugnant or repulsive and things like that. And I just, it's almost like I can't do it. I can't take part in the meditation because I just find, I sort of disagree with it so much.
It's natural to have some resistance to this meditation, because it's it's the natural disposition of the mind to look on the body as being beautiful and attractive. And when you get exposed to the internal parts of the body in this way, it does set up some kind of resistance. And also I have to say that this meditation is not universally recommended to all meditators. It's especially recommended, at least in the commentaries, to those of a lustful temperament who are seeking to become detached from lust. So it helps to, as I said, as the antidote for reducing and overcoming sensual craving. But do try to continue with the practice, even if you feel some resistance to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good to kind of break the body down, you know, such, and sort of recognize its constituent parts. And like the previous person said about using it as a meditation like that, I just sort of, every time those words come up, I kind of, oh no, it's not revolting, you know.
Yeah, I don't, as I said, I myself, I don't want to emphasize the body as revolting or repulsive and ugly and disgusting. No, that's not the way I would emphasize this, but looking at the body as full of these parts, it does, when you look at it in this way, tend to, to counteract the force of sensual lust. And, you know, especially for us monastics, And you have to remember the Buddha was teaching probably among his monastic disciples. A lot of them were in their 20s, early 30s, still full of a vital energy. And when they go wandering on their alms round in the villages, they would see beautiful and attractive women. And so this would be a way to help them to deal with the sensual craving, sensual lust. Okay, we'll have to move on with the questions. Okay, I'm not sure how to pronounce La Miat Soa.
Yes, Bhante. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Hello, Bhante. My question is about the breathing meditation.
Okay.
Yesterday, there were a number of people who described their experiences during the body meditation. And with the breath meditation, I have had similar experience of lightness of the body and absence of the body and feeling of joy and so on. And when I start the breathing meditation, the breath seems quite prominent. But when I have that experience, the breath seems to fade and I'm more in that kind of space. And you said yesterday about sampajana and referring back to knowing what you're doing. And I just wondered what I should do with the breath meditation when I have that experience.
When the breath becomes, what happens to the breath?
When the breath seems less prominent and in the background, but the experience of that lightness seems much more prominent. So with the practice of clear comprehension, should I concentrate more on the feeling of that lightness, which seems more present, or should I go back to the breath?
No. You should make the effort to catch again the sense of the breath. Whatever you use as your post of observation for following the breath, you go back to that post and just keep on observing more and more intently, sort of settle the mind there until the experience of the in and out breathing reappears, reemerges, and then go on following the in and out breathing.
If I may just continue, please, Bhante. So you said that with the breath meditation, that is the post for jhana meditation. And I just wondered when one would know the difference between, I don't know what one would experience if one was experiencing jhana during the breath meditation.
Yeah, there are different, this gets to be a rather complicated issue because there are different versions of what constitutes a jhana. I think I mentioned this briefly yesterday. Within this commentarial system deriving from the Visuddhimagga, it said that when you're focused on the breath at a certain point, what is called a nimitta appears, this like a disk of light, and then that becomes more intent. And then at a certain point, one is supposed to drop the attention to the breath and just plunge the mind or direct the mind into the nimitta, the disk of light, and focus on that. And that is what brings one to the jhana. That's the Visuddhimagga commentarial system of jhana. In the suttas, one doesn't find any mention of something like a nimitta as the object of the jhana, or an abandoning of awareness of the body in the jhana. But this takes like a lot of scholarly explanation, which we can't go into now.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay, we take Shirley.
Can you hear me, Bhante?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I think, like Joanna, I was a little put off by this idea of the Asubha meditation. I've been very well aware of it for many years and never actually done it formally in this sort of way. And the idea of, I'm very appreciative of the fact that you said that it's not it's more detachment rather than repulsion.
Yeah.
So I actually did it, and I just tried to look at these various parts with detachment.
Yeah.
And for a few of them, my mind just went, ugh, when I came across, when you mentioned some of the things like pus and various slimy bits. But mostly when I thought of the organs, a tremendous feeling of appreciation and gratitude came
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's, I mean, obviously that's what came up. So that's what came up.
Yeah.
So do I stay with that, or do I also, because it's amazing. I mean, I'm over 70 and all these bits are working pretty well. And it's just a miracle. And so there's a lot of appreciation and gratitude coming up to all these various little bits of my body, and a sort of dissolution of the fact that the body is solid. But should I also bring up the fact that they may cease working so well rather than get carried away by the sort of appreciation? Because surely they will. I mean, the sense of fragility also came up.
Yeah. In this meditation, one doesn't do either. The purpose is not, or the aim is not to develop an attitude of appreciation and gratitude towards the parts of the body, or the perspective that eventually these parts are going to fail and then it will result in illness and death. I mean, there are separate meditations for illness and death, but here the point is just to look into the body is composed of these constituents, and to see that because the constituents themselves are not beautiful and attractive, then when we take the beautiful appearance of the body, we could see that that's just the superficial illusion that our mind superimposes on the external form of the body. And especially for monastics, that is proposed as the antidote, well, for anybody, but it's especially useful for those dedicated to a celibate life, useful as the antidote to sexual desire.
So as an elderly lay woman who's not sort of plagued by sexual desire, how that doesn't seem a particularly necessary meditation for me. If I'm doing it, as you say, and say gratitude or revulsion comes up, I just notice that and let that be in the background.
Yeah.
And carry on just looking with detachment. Thank you.
Yeah, and what was I going to say? Yeah, during this course, continue to do this meditation as I'm instructing it, but you're not under an obligation to make this in the future your primary meditation object. Just learn the meditation in the course, and then you continue with your daily practice, whichever method of meditation you find most beneficial.
Thank you. I mean, it's been a very interesting experience having a go at this practice, even though I don't plan to make it my main practice in the future. Thank you so much.
Okay, I see there are other hands raised, but we've come to the end of our question time for now. I think I might have another question time later. I'll try to leave time for some more questions later in the day. So please, I will give prominence when the next question comes. I don't have a pen to write the names down. Helena, Wind, Samir, and Brenda. I see these three. But if I take all the questions, then Jason has a pencil. Okay. Helena, Wind, Samir, and Brenda in California. Okay, so you get to ask the questions next time. But if any of you have a quick, short, practical question that I could answer with the snap of the fingers, unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. Now I see 4 participants raise hands. No, I'm only, okay, we won't take any more questions now. We'll have to take them later. Okay, so now we're going to return to our practice. And this time, this round, what I'm going to do is first run through the list of the 32 parts, the straight list, and then I'm going to present a simplified form of the practice on the parts of the body so that we don't have to become entangled in learning all 32 parts. But even the commentaries say that once you become familiar with the 32 parts, you can start dropping those parts that are not so prominent and retain those that are more prominent. Okay, I'm going to stop the share. And then I have to go back to the list of parts. Okay, so let us take our meditation seat. Okay, set up mindfulness in the body. And just dwell on full body awareness for a minute or so. Okay, now we're going to practice the Subha Bhavana, the contemplation of the unattractive or unbeautiful nature of the body. And so we each take our own body from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, then up from the soles of the feet to the top of the head, bounded by skin. In this body, there are many unattractive components. So we have hairs of the head, hairs of the body, the nails, fingernails and toenails. Teeth, 2 rows of teeth. Skin, complex layering of skin. Then we're continuing on. There are muscles or flesh. Sinews binding the muscles to the bone and the bones to each other. There's the bones joined together to form the skeleton. And then there is bone marrow. Then we go to the internal organs. In this body, there are kidneys, there is the heart, there is the liver, there is the diaphragm, the spleen, and the lungs. In this body, there are intestines, the large intestine and the small intestines. There's mesentery, tissue binding the small intestines in place. There is the stomach, there's feces accumulating in the rectum. And there is the brain. Then we come to the fluids. In this body, there is bile, kind of a yellow, greenish liquid. There is phlegm. Pus, produced when we get wounds. Blood permeating the entire body. Sweat. And fat. Then there are tears. Grease of the skin. Saliva. Nasal mucus. Fluid of the joints. And urine. And so we take this body again from the top of the head to the soles of the feet, from the soles of the feet up to the top of the head, bounded by skin. And we can, when we examine inside the body, we find these 32 constituents, these tissues, organs, and fluids. Okay, now I'm going to introduce the simplified way of practice, where we just select certain constituents of the body. Continue to to maintain your posture. Okay, we begin with the skin. The skin enveloping the entire body. And you could scan down the skin from the top of the head, and the skin covering the face, the neck, and just go down the entire body, all covered and enveloped in skin, all the ways down to the soles of the feet. And we penetrate beneath the skin, and there is the layer of muscle or flesh. And I shared the screen with the diagram that shows the layering of the body. So we could see in the image, sort of transparent, the muscles, at least from the neck down to the thighs. But you could scan the body from top to bottom, taking in the entire layer of muscles or flesh. Okay, then going below the muscles, we come to the skeleton. And so again, scan the body to sort of pick up the sense of the skeletal scaffolding of the body, the framework of this provided by the skeleton. And next, I take just a few internal organs. And these are the ones that are most evident in this particular diagram that we have here. So I would go like inside the skeletal, the rib cage. And so within the body, beneath the ribs, we have the lungs, the heart, the liver, the stomach, and the intestines, large intestines, small intestines. Just that selection I find to be enough. Lungs, heart, liver, stomach, intestines, large and small intestines. Do it one more time. Lungs, heart, liver, stomach, intestines, large and small. And then to represent the liquid element, I take just the blood. And so pervading this entire body, in all of its tissues and organs, there is blood. And then we can do this over and over. So again, we start with the skin, from the top of the head to the soles of the feet, from the soles of the feet up to the top of the head, enclosing the entire body. And beneath the skin, there is muscle or flesh. And scan the body to examine the muscular components. Beneath the muscles, there is the skeleton made up of bones. And scan the skeleton. Then beneath the skeleton, there are various internal organs. The lungs, the heart, the liver, the stomach, and the intestines, large intestine, small intestine, and pervading the entire body and all of its tissues and organs. There is blood. And again, you can scan down from top to bottom, sensing the flow of the blood. You can do another round together. First, we take our own body in the sitting position, in the sitting posture. Then we see this body from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, enveloped by skin. Okay, we go beneath the skin. And we come to the layer of the muscle or flesh. Scan down through the whole body, focusing on the muscles. Beneath the muscles, there is the skeleton. And follow, scan down from the skull to the neck bone, the spine, the ribs, the entire skeletal structure. Going beneath the skeletal structure, we find various inner organs, among them the lungs, 2 lungs, the heart, constantly beating heart, the liver, the stomach, the intestines, large and small intestines, and then the entire body, all the tissues pervaded by blood, pumped out from the heart and reaching every obscure, remote part of the body. So see the body as a column of blood. And now we cover the entire body again with the skin and just dwell for a couple of minutes on realizing that this is the nature of the body. don't have to, in fact, shouldn't develop repulsion or disgust, but just see that this is the way the body really is. Beneath the appearance of beauty, there are all of these components and constituents which are not in themselves of beautiful appearance. Okay, now when you're ready, you can open your eyes, relax your posture. And then end the session in the usual way. And now we're going to do a session of walking meditation in the same way that I explained it this morning. You walk at a moderately slow pace, and as you're walking, you are seeing the body as a structure built on a framework of bones and covered with muscles. So in the act of walking, you're thinking that what is walking, what I call the body that's walking, or when I think I am walking, is actually a body that is walking. And it's a body that consists of skeleton covered with bones. I'm sorry, a skeleton of bones covered with muscles. Yeah, we just keep it simple, just bones and muscles. Okay, so let us do the walking for about 30 minutes and be back in the meditation seat at 3:40 Eastern Daylight Time. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're going to continue with the meditation on the parts of the body in the compressed or condensed way that I had just explained. And I'll go through it one time myself. Then we'll leave a period, maybe about 10, 15 minutes for you to practice this on your own, going through the condensed system of practice in silence. And then halfway through, I'm going to introduce another application of the meditation on the parts of the body, an extension or an expansion of the practice. Okay, so let's settle into our position. Again, start off by setting up a general mindfulness in the body. Taking in a kind of global or totalistic awareness of the body in the immediate present. Okay, now we're going to be developing the Asubha Sanya, the perception of the inherently unattractive nature of the body in the short form. So we reflect back and examine this body. Covered by skin from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, from the soles of the feet up to the top of the head. So we have in this body the covering of skin, beneath the skin, we have the layer of flesh or muscles. And then you scan the body down to the entire muscular structure. Below the muscles, we have the skeleton, the framework of, or the edifice of bones. And then again, you scan the skeleton. And beneath the skeleton, we have various internal organs, among them the lungs, the heart, the liver, the stomach, and the intestines, the large intestine, and, and the small intestines. And then permeating the entire body, there is blood. And again, scan the body down, it is filled with blood. And so this is the constituents, these are the constituents of the body. Okay, continue doing this now on your own for about 10 minutes. Do it at your own pace. And then I will come back in and explain the extension of the practice. Okay, now we're going to do the extension of the perception of the body. And it's said in the Satipatthana Sutta that the meditator practices this internally and externally. Internally means in relation to oneself, externally in relation to others. So now we've been practicing the Asubha Sanya internally in relation to ourself. Now we're going to practice it externally in relation to others. And so to begin, you choose another person, but this should not be a romantic partner, a spouse, a person who you might be sexually attracted to, a person who you might be in love with, and so on. It should be pretty much a neutral person. It could be a friend, but not an extremely close friend. So bring that person to mind. In your mind's eye, and now we're going to perform the same type of operation on the body of this other person. For convenience, I'll just call that person my friend. So it could be a distant relative, a colleague, a neighbor. Just choose one person. See that person in your mind's eye. And now we take the body of that person. Look at that body of the body of that person as covered with skin from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet, from the soles of the feet up to the top of the head. We have the covering of skin. Then we go beneath the skin. To the layer of muscles. So scan that person's body by way from top to bottom, by way of the layer of muscles. We remove the layer of muscles, and we come to the skeleton. Scan that person's body by way of the skeleton. Okay, then we go behind or beneath the skeleton, and we see within that person's body various internal organs, among them lungs, the heart, the liver, the stomach, and the intestines, large intestine, small intestine, and then we see that person's body permeated in every little nook and corner, permeated by blood, a flowing stream of blood. Okay, we'll do another round. Again, take your friend's body, see it in its normal form in front of you, maybe about 10 yards away. And now we're going to see that body is enveloped in a coat of skin from the top of the head all the ways down to the feet, an envelope of skin. Then we go beneath the skin and we have the covering of muscle, of flesh. Then beneath the flesh, we have the skeleton, the framework of bones. Again, we scan the skeleton. And then behind the bones, we have various internal organs, the lungs, the heart, the liver, the stomach, the intestines, large and small, And then the entire body permeated by blood. And then scan down the body as a column of blood. Okay, then the next step is that we extend our mind to all human beings living on the earth, the bodies of all human beings. And this is more like a reflective meditation. That the bodies of all human beings are covered by this envelope of skin, whether it's white, black, brown, various shades in between, but they all have covering of skin. Beneath the skin, they all have a layer of flesh formed into muscles. Of course, we can't scan all humanity, so we have to do this reflectively. So they all have a layer of muscles. Every human body is built upon a framework of bones, the skeleton. And behind the skeleton, every human body has lungs, a heart, the liver, the stomach, and the intestines, large and small intestines. And every human body is permeated by blood. Okay, now come back to your own body, the felt immediate sense of your own body. Take a few deep breaths in and out. And then you can open your eyes. and relax your position. Okay, we'll take a break now, and okay, we'll come back and be in your seat at 4:35 Eastern Daylight Time. So we'll have about a 20-minute break. And then we can take some more questions during the next session. Okay, so we take our break now. And now we are finished with the meditation on the parts of the body. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, so the tea break is finished now, and we're ready to resume our program. And I thought that I should devote this this period to taking questions, because in the evening, when I introduce the 4 elements meditation, there will be a little talk, Dhamma talk, to explain the 4 elements meditation and to explain the relationship between the Asubha meditation, the meditation on the impurity of the body, and the 4 elements meditation. So in the evening from about 7 to 7:30, we'll have the Dhamma talk, and now we can use this period for questions. And I still have 3 questions from the earlier period, and I see the hands are still up there. So first one is Helena Wind, and you can unmute.
Thank you, Bhante, for taking my question. I have a question. It's about yesterday's teaching, overcoming the 5 hindrances.
Yeah.
You taught that we can use loving kindness and compassion meditation to overcome the ill will. I started practicing loving kindness and compassion meditation, followed your guidance on YouTube and your article since last year. It helps me a lot when I was very anxious or very sad. When I get anxious, I got even stomach ache. So I usually practice this for 1 hour to get away my stomach ache. It's really, really helpful. I'm so grateful to you. So my question was about a question yesterday, asking if a traumatized memory appeared in meditation, how to overcome it.
When what? When what appears?
When a traumatized memory.
Oh, I see. Traumatic.
Yes. Yes. So I had a similar situation in my life, and bad memories come back. So I'm wondering if we can use loving kindness and compassion meditation to overcome this, because this traumatized memory appeared with the feelings, the ill will feelings.
Yeah, I would say certainly it is a helpful method for dealing with traumatic experience, particularly if the traumatic experience comes at the hands of a person who has abused you or harmed you in some way. And so there are a lot of repressed feelings of antagonism and ill will towards that person. Then the practice of the loving kindness meditation can help to overcome that feeling of the ill will and antagonism that you have towards that person. And perhaps it could be effective in helping you to completely emerge from the trauma. But I would say probably it differs from person to person. There could be people who have been so badly traumatized that even any form of meditation in itself, maybe it'll help to some extent to ameliorate the pain of the trauma. But I'm not sure that in every case it's sufficient. Sometimes one has to resort to different methods depending on the nature of the trauma, the strength, and one's own personal skills.
Thank you.
Yeah, but certainly the loving kindness meditation can be a helpful tool for dealing with trauma.
Yeah, it's really helped me. So if I may ask a second question regarding today's meditation. So instead we look at other person as skeletons. Can we look at other people as Buddhas? I feel it makes me feel better if I look at other people as Buddhas.
One could do that, but that is not an extension of the practice of the impurity of the body.
Mm-hmm. I just feel sad that.
What is that?
I feel sad if I look at all people as skeletons. When I look at other people as Buddhas, I feel better. I feel.
Okay. Yeah, it depends on the purpose. Like the purpose of this meditation, it's not just to look at them as skeletons, but to look at the entire anatomical composition of the body. So that there's more to them than skeletons. There's skin, flesh, bones, various organs. The primary purpose of this meditation, as I mentioned several times earlier, is to deal with the problem of sensual desire, particularly sexual lust. But one sort of consequence of doing this universalization of the meditation on the parts of the body that I found is that it gives a very strong sense of what we can call the universality of humanity, the oneness of humanity. That, you know, we have so much today in today's world, well, throughout history, conflict between people of different nationalities, different races, different skin colors, different genders, different religious beliefs, different languages. And yet, when we look at how every human person has a body that consists of essentially the same constituents, then all of those other conflicts, grounds of conflict, seem so trivial, futile, foolish, irrelevant. What's really relevant is that we are all, in our basic constitution, the same. So you could use that meditation on the this sameness of the anatomical constitution of human beings as a way to get a sense of the universal identity or sameness of humanity. But the original purpose is to dispel sensual lust. Okay, we're going to have to move on in the questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is Samir, and you can unmute.
Bhante, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear them.
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for introducing me to meditation the way you have. It has already started benefiting me in terms of allowing me to be more calm and more peaceful. So again, thank you so much for that. You have no idea. There is one question where some help would be appreciated. When I was practicing yesterday and also today, focusing on the body meditation, as I'm concentrating, I feel a sense of pressure building inside my head. It's almost like somebody's pressing on it. Sometimes it's behind my eyeballs, sometimes it's in the forehead space between my eyes, sometimes in the temple. And I try to ignore it and I continue to concentrate. And sometimes it goes away, but sometimes it keeps getting more and more intense to a point where it's painful. And then when I stop, it disappears. So when I break the meditation and I sit quietly for 2 minutes, it goes away on its own. But it's still an hindrance to me, and I don't know what is happening or how to overcome it.
Yeah, I don't have an easy solution to that problem myself. It can be like what we call these deluding phenomena produced by the meditation, which you just have to persist and work through the pain and then it will disappear. That's a possibility. There can be many other possibilities. I just don't know. Perhaps you are like focusing too intently in the meditation and that's causing a muscular tension that is responsible for the pressure. Did this come, you said it came with the mindfulness of breathing?
It comes particularly when I try to concentrate intensely. So when the breathing, it was not a problem. I was able to manage. When I started focusing on the full body And it was harder for me to transition from breathing to full body because I almost had to imagine more. And that's when I started noticing it. And then when I was focusing on that floating type experience, I had it very briefly, but right after that, I tried to get back into that state, and then I felt the pain.
Yeah. I would say maybe you're focusing too intensely. I would say maybe try relaxing, not dropping the meditation subject, but relaxing the focus in the meditation. And what I found helpful myself, to give you my personal experience, sometimes if I feel too much intentness building up in my concentration, what I do, and this might sound a little silly, but I move the point of my focus, the base of my focus, to the feeling of the buttocks pressing against the seat. And I make that the focal point of the meditation. Just observing the contact sensation, and not intently, in a rather relaxed and soft and relaxed way. And another place that I turn to sort of to relax the focus is the small of the back, that sort of dent in the lower back.
Okay.
And I just put my attention there. And then from there, I let it spread out through the body, but sort of resting as though the mind were a little person sitting on a meditation seat in the small of the back.
Mm.
And then it seems to have a very relaxing effect on the awareness of the body. So you could experiment with various methods like that.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll try it probably right now. Thanks.
Okay, now, did I take Brenda? No, I didn't take Brenda yet. Okay, first we take Brenda.
Thank you, Bhante, for devoting your time to teaching the Dhamma to us. In terms of the purpose of these body meditations to sort of remove sexual lust and a tendency maybe to beautification, I'm feeling that in this life, at this stage that I'm at, which is as a senior person, I'm not quite as plagued. I'm not saying it's totally gone, but not quite as plagued by those. But what I'm more concerned about is this subtle identification with the body, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a part of Sakya Ditti, the fetter of Sakya. And I'm wondering if you can recommend one of these, in particular, what you've found to be useful to help release that fetter amongst these practices.
Yeah, I find that the meditation on the constituent parts of the body, even though it's taught here in the Satipatthana Sutta and elsewhere, it's taught as a means of dispelling sensual lust, but also it helps to break up or to release the identification with the body. But more particularly, and we're going to see this in the evening session, you're in California, is that correct? Are you in California?
Yes, I'm sorry, Bhante, I was muted. I am in California, yes.
Okay, so the time is not inconvenient for you to be here for the evening session. Yeah, so I'm going to explain the elements, the 4 elements meditation, and that's another meditation that can be used to break up that sort of narrow identification with the body.
Okay.
So we'll be dealing with that in the evening.
I feel that it's I've done some corpse meditation, but I feel that it's this subtle attachment that is really an obstacle to my progress.
But we have to remember also that subtle attachment, which is the manifestation of Sakya Ditti, Like that's a very, very persistent fetter, which is really eliminated only with the attainment of the stage of stream entry. But we can use these various meditations to gradually sort of weaken that grip of identification with the body.
I
And
see.
even, I would say, even you said you've done the corpse meditation.
Yes.
Even some forms of that meditation can help to break the identification with the body. So not in the radical way. The radical way, we need the insight into the three characteristics of an impermanence, dukkha, and non-self. But at a more conceptual level, some of these other meditations can help to gradually weaken that identification.
I see. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, then we'll come to Miriam again.
Thank you, Bhante. I wanted to talk about the hindrances with sensuality. Mine is also not with lust of the body. Mine is with food.
With?
Food.
Oh,
eating.
an obsession with food.
With food. It's not really an obsession, but I really enjoy it. And I'm trying to keep the 8 precepts. And that's the only thing I cannot do. I can do everything else, but I cannot stop myself from eating after 12:30 my time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if there are some suggestions or some.
Yeah, well, I say that there are two distinct things. One is the craving for food, or the sense that one has to eat at a fixed time, in this case, at sometime in the evening, and that one becomes anxious and dissatisfied if one is not, and frustrated if one is not able to eat at that time. That is one problem. Another problem is, I would say, fascination or attachment to the delicious flavors of food. And that, I know from personal experience, can persist even in somebody who has been observing the practice of not eating in the evening for 45 years. So that is something that they require like different antidotes, different remedies. So with the problem of not being able to resist the temptation to eat in the evening when you've made the determination to follow the 6 precepts, not to eat after midday, in that case, you have to just be firm in one's determination. I'm going to observe this precept. But also we have to be clear that in the Buddhist tradition, the monastic tradition, we have at midday, we have quite a substantial meal. It's not like the typical American lunch, you know, a sandwich and a bowl of soup or salad. Because if you eat like the typical American lunch, then it's likely you're going to be hungry again in the evening. So we have the substantial meal that's like 11:30 of rice and various vegetable dishes, tofu dishes, a soup and fruits and so on. And then when we have that substantial meal at midday, then in the evening, we're not hungry. So that's the remedy for the problem of the craving for food or the sense of worry that you have to eat, or the drive to eat in the evening, not being able to observe the precept. Then to deal with the problem of it's like addiction or obsession with delicious food, eating delicious varieties of delicious food. Well, one of the remedies for that is the method that I've explained several times earlier in this retreat. When you're taking the meal, you break the process up into certain stages of, I delineate 5 stages of taking the food. It's taking it from the plate or bowl and lifting it to the mouth, putting the food into the mouth, then chewing, and attending mindfully to the chewing. And then when the taste arises, then noting the taste, and then mindfully swallowing the food. And when you practice in this way persistently, you find that the interest in the taste of the food, that I can't say it vanishes, but it subsides. So the experience of taste just becomes like moments of tasting consciousness arising and then
And
passing
passing.
away. And
I
so then
see.
one becomes much less concerned with the taste of the food because you're focusing on the process of eating and the task of chewing, tasting, swallowing. Yeah, so you could try
Okay.
that and see how it
Okay.
works.
Thank you. May I ask one more question?
Okay.
This morning, you were talking about the foulness of the body. You said a bhikkhu reviews and examines. I
Yeah.
wanted to see if you can elaborate on these two words in terms of how do you examine, what do you examine in terms of like, if you're looking at the skin, what is it that you examine in the skin?
Yeah, the actual Pali word, I think, is pachavekati, which means literally looks back upon, almost like reflects. So it's not that one is necessarily sort of examining in detail,
Okay.
but one is just examining the body in terms of those constituents. So one is seeing that what we call the body, we take to be a unitary whole. So we're seeing that the body consists of these different components.
Okay.
So that is
Okay.
what is meant by reflecting upon or reviewing this body. It's not that
Okay.
one is examining the individual components, that one is examining the components individually in detail, but one is breaking down the unitary perception of the body and seeing how it consists of this conglomeration or assemblage of different tissues, organs, and
Got it.
fluids.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Of course, to get a more detailed knowledge of the components, then you can, with Google Images, you could put in any part of the body that you want to examine in detail. You put in the word heart in Google Images, and then you'll get like hundreds of images of the heart. If you put in the liver, then you'll get many images of the liver. And that way you can become more familiar with these organs in detail. But it's not really necessary to get full detail. I'd say a general impression is sufficient for the practice. Okay, we go to the next. That's Shreyas.
Hi, Bante.
Hi.
I wonder if you could give some guidance as to whether one should rotate through the variety of different meditations that you've taught and perhaps one has been taught in the past, or whether one should go really more deeply with a single practice.
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. What I would say is that for one's daily practice, say you have an hour in the morning, hour in the evening, then it's probably best to choose either one subject that one uses for both periods, or maybe two subjects, one for the morning, one for the evening, and just stick to those. Maybe it's good to use two subjects. So you could use like one subject in the morning, one subject in the evening. For example, one might use the loving kindness meditation in the morning and mindfulness of breathing in the evening, or reverse. Or else what you could do is, say you want to make mindfulness of breathing your primary object, but you could then start off your period of practice, say with 10 minutes of loving kindness meditation, and then do the rest of the session with mindfulness of breathing. And so you do it that way, both morning and evening. start off 10, 15 minutes of loving kindness, then the rest of the period, say 30, 40 minutes of mindfulness of breathing, and then the same in the evening.
Okay.
And then maybe once in a while, if you want, you could take up another subject, maybe use it for a week or so just to see how it is. But it's best to have sort of a stable primary meditation subject or pair of subjects that you take as your foundation. Otherwise, if you start running through too many meditation subjects, the mind gets scattered and doesn't really build up momentum.
And would it be helpful to, practice meditations that perhaps you're not so drawn towards, or you feel some discomfort with, or is that not unimportant in terms of?
I'd say probably it's best for day-to-day practice to use the meditation subject that you feel comfortable with and congenial. Otherwise, if you take a meditation subject that you find disagreeable, then you might become disenchanted with the practice of meditation and give it up.
Great.
Because one wants to infuse one's inner life with joy and happiness. And so for that reason, it's good to choose subjects that give happiness. But it is, now that I said that, it's useful from time to time to do the meditation on death, at least occasionally, because that really reminds one of one's mortality and stirs up the sense of urgency and sort of drives one to be more diligent in one's practice.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Yeah, a few years ago, on successive Saturdays, I gave the 4 protective meditations, recollection of the Buddha, one Saturday, then the next one, the loving kindness meditation, the 3rd Saturday, the meditation on the 32 parts of the body, the 4th Saturday, the mindfulness of death. The attendance on the first 3 meditations was moderate. But for the section on mindfulness of death, there was almost standing room only. So a lot of people wanted to learn the meditation on death.
Thank you.
Okay, we come to Sud. Let me unmute you.
Thank you, Bhante, for taking my question. So, I had a lot of trouble with the meditation where, you take the breath and you feel the whole body breathing. I mean, that was very difficult. It keeps going it kept going to the nose, or it kept going to the feet. It was very odd. I don't know why it went to my feet. But whenever I thought about the whole body, it would just go to specific locations and not the whole body. I mean, do you have any advice as to how to deal with the whole body sensation?
Well, I say that there's the habitual tendency when one first switches over to experiencing the whole body, being mindful of in and out breathing while experiencing the whole body. There's a natural tendency for the mind to start going back to one's primary focus point, which I guess in your case would be the nostrils, that the mind should go to the feet. I have to say, I find that a bit strange. But just supposing the mind naturally tends to go back to the primary object, that's just the natural tendency because that's the way you've been practicing habitually. In that case, one just has to recognize when the mind has gone back to the primary focus point. One recognizes that and then pulls it away and again spreads the awareness through the whole body. And then as one goes on persisting with that, then one will become accustomed to experiencing the whole body.
So I guess it just
Maybe
takes
it's a little bit like
practice.
teaching a dog a trick, a new trick. Like if you've taught your dog how to roll over on its back, and then you're trying to teach it to stand up on its hind legs. So you say to the dog, stand up on your hind legs, and the dog will roll on its back again. So you have to keep on telling the dog, no, no, stand up on the hind legs. And then after a little training, it will stand up on the hind legs.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And now we come to Julia.
Hi, Bhante. This is Julia. Thanks for taking my question. So
Yeah.
my question is about the mindfulness of breathing.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, you mentioned that well, first we focus on one point, then we do observe the length of the breath, then
Yeah.
we do the whole body mindfulness.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that this will bring us to partial samadhi. So what actually is the next component to acquire a full samadhi?
There are different types of samadhi. And I would say that persisting with the experience of the whole body while breathing in and out can bring one to a samadhi, but that would not be the jhanic samadhi, which is spoken of in the Visuddhimagga commentarial system. For that kind of samadhi, I would say the most effective way is to retain the focus in the specific area, and especially the area around the nostrils or upper lip, because that's a very narrow area in which you can be focused very intently on that spot.
But
So for the deeper jhanic type of samadhi, I would say to focus with the in and out breathing in the area around the nostrils and upper lip. But I think the aim of the Satipatthana system, the way I see it, is not so much leaning towards the jhanic samadhi, but towards a samadhi which can serve more as a vehicle for knowing and understanding the nature of our experience. In other words, a samadhi that can be a base for insight knowledge. And for the insight knowledge to arise, it will not arise in a jhanic samadhi.
Well, that's great clarification. I really appreciate it. So your advice here is to actually do the full body mindfulness. That's the experience that we should aim for.
Well, it's not so much that I'm saying that this is what you should aim for, but I'm saying that this is the way I'm interpreting the explanation given in the Satipatthana Sutta of what is meant by experiencing the whole body, one breathes in, experiencing the whole body, one breathes out. Those are the directions that are laid out in the Satipatthana Sutta. So my directions are based on what is stated in the sutta.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, we take Robert, and then after that, on Fong, and then we'll have to end. Okay, Robert.
Hi, Bhante. Thank you for taking my question. Yesterday, when you were talking about the hindrances, this question came up for myself. To be clear, say I'm doing the body or the breath or contemplating on the parts of the body like we're doing, and ill will arises. So I'm imagining from your explanation that it's okay to shift for maybe a few minutes of loving kindness because this random ill will towards my neighbor or something like that arose because they have chickens that wake me up or something. Is that a good interpretation, that it's okay just for a few minutes to do this loving kindness, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, what I would say is that, say you're doing the mindfulness of breathing or the full body awareness, and then some thoughts of ill will arise. I say that the first approach is simply to recognize ill will has arisen, and then try to drop it just through the determination of the will. Recognize ill will, dispel it. and then come back to the primary object. But if you try again and again, dispelling it and coming back to the primary object, but the thoughts of ill will are persisting, then temporarily, then you can drop the primary object and devote a couple of minutes to a couple of minutes to directing loving kindness towards the person who might be provoking your ill will. And then when that loving kindness, feeling of loving kindness becomes established, then come back to the primary object.
Okay, thank you. And is it okay to ask one more quick question?
Okay, yeah.
It is, while doing the contemplation to disenchant sensual desire, I'm an artist and I am fascinated by the anatomy.
Yeah.
And I'm just delighted kind of by this brilliant construction. So I'm not necessarily, I'm trying to be disenchanted, but I'm kind of, it's just the way I'm trying to train myself, but I've also been trained to really love and enjoy the aesthetic beauty of the body. And I would say this may be even an issue or a problem with artfully done food. It's beautiful and there's an artist and a chef, that kind of thing. So that's my question in terms of,
Yeah, I just say that different practices have different purposes and different contexts. So in one context, for becoming disenchanted with sensual pleasures, then you can use the contemplation of the inherently unattractive nature of the body. But in your artistic work, you can appreciate the anatomy, the anatomical construction of the body. And as I said in the earlier talk, I said that I'm often awestruck by the miraculous way in which all of these organs of the body perform their own functions in relative harmony with each other without any conscious deliberation on my part. That brings a feeling of awe and wonder. So, but at the same time, I could practice the Asubha Sanya, the meditation on the unattractive nature of the body for its intended purpose.
Yeah,
okay, we have to move on to one last question. So this is Anne Fong.
Good afternoon, Bante. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. I think it's morning for you.
My question is about meditation. I feel really connected to my pain in the stomach.
Yeah.
So it's been an object of my meditation. And when it subsides, when the pain subsides, and I feel very calm and peaceful. So, but I don't know what to do after that. And my question is, when the pain already subsides and you feel calm, like really deep calm that I never experienced before, do I continue find another subject or to meditate or?
Wait, say again about the pain in your stomach. You say you feel really connected to it?
Yeah, I feel connected to my pain, to my body, that part of the body. So when it's not painful anymore, and I just don't know what to do after that. Do I move my object of meditation
Yeah.
to something?
What is the primary object of meditation that you're using?
Just watching the pain subside.
I see. Just watching the pain.
Yeah.
Have you had the stomach consulted a doctor about the pain in the stomach?
Yes, I did.
Is there some organic cause for it?
Only just a general checkup, not the full check and scope.
Yeah, anyway, it would be good to consult a doctor about the pain in the stomach to see if that problem can be solved. But as far as meditation goes, when the pain subsides, then you have a good opportunity to go back to a primary object like mindfulness of breathing, Or if you prefer some other meditation subject, like the loving kindness that we do on the Wednesday evenings, so then do one of those meditation subjects.
Bante, so my question more like when is the good time when we know that we should break the meditation or we keep going on? Because when I get to the very deep calm and equanimity, I just don't want to get off. And I don't want to break the meditation.
Well, if you have the time, then you can continue the meditation. You don't have to end it at a particular time. So for day-to-day practice, it's usually good to set yourself a fixed period of time, say 45 minutes, 50 minutes, or an hour. And then when that hour elapses, then you end the meditation. But if you want to continue beyond that, then you can do so. You just have to decide according to your own personal schedule.
Thank you, Bante.
Okay, we'll have to end now the Q&A session. And now there'll be a period of chanting in Pali. Bante Mangala will conduct the chanting. I think, Jason, you're going to put the chanting? Oh, yeah, Jason has put it up.
Okay, can everyone hear me all right? Okay, so we'll do our Pali recital. As always, we'll put our hands up in Anjali at the heart as a sign of respect for the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And we'll begin by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Okay, homage to the Buddha. Iti piso bhagava araham samma sambuddho vija charana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro puresa dhamma sarati sattha deva manusanam buddho bhagavati. Namo tassa samma sambuddhassa ye cha buddha tita cha ye cha buddha anagata pachupanna cha ye buddha ahang vandami sabada nati me saranang anyam Buddho me saranang varam etena sacha vajena hotu me jaya mangalam. Uttamangena vandeham padapang suvaruttamam. Buddhayo kalito doso Buddho kamatu tang mamam. Buddhang yavani bana pariyantang saranang gacchami. Okay, homage to the Dhamma. Swakato bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko akaliko ehipasiko panayiko Pachatang veditabo vinyuhiti. Namo tassa niyanikassa dhammasa. Ye cha dhamma tita cha ye cha dhamma anagata. Pachupanna cha ye dhamma ahang vandami sabada. Nati me saranang anyang dhammo me saranang varam. Etena sacha vajena hotu me jaya mangalam. Uttamangena vandeham dhamman cha dividam varam. Dhammeyo kalito doso dhammo kamatu tamamam. Dhammang yavani bana pariyantang saranang gacchami. Okay, homage to the Sangha. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Nyaya patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Samichi patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Yadidang chattari purisa yugani atta purisa pugala. Esa bhagavato savaka sangho. Ahuneyo pahuneyo dakineyo anjali karaniyo. Anuttarang punya ketang lokasati. Namo tassa atta arya bhugala mahasangasa. Ye cha sangha tita cha ye cha sangha anagata. Pachupanna cha ye sangha ahang vandami sabada. Nati me saranang anyang sangho me saranang varam. Etena sacha vajena hotu me jaya mangalam. Uttamangena vandeham sanghan cha duviduttamam. Sangeyo kalito doso Sango kamatu tang mamam. Sangang yavani bana parihantang saranang gacchami. Okay, homage to the three symbols. Vandami chetyang sabbang sabbatani supatititang. Saririkadatu mahabodhing Buddharupang sakalang sada. Imaya dhamma nudhamma patipattiya Buddhang pujimi. Imaya Dhammanudhamma Patipattiya Dhammang Puji. Imaya Dhammanudhamma Patipattiya Sanghang Puji. Okay, now let's turn to the Metta Sutta. Namo tassa samma sambuddhassa karaniya atta kusalena yantang santang padam avisamecha sakuju cha suju cha suvajo cha samudo anatimani santu sakocha suvarocha hapakicho cha salukavuti Santindriyo Janipakocha Appagabo Kule Savanubiddu Nacha Kudang Samachari Kinchi Yena Vinyu Pare Upavadeyu Sukino wa Kemino Hontu Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukitata Ye kinchipana bhutati tasawa taravana vasesa Digawa ye mahantawa majjima rasaka nukatula Dittawa eva ditta ye chadure vasandhya vidure Bhutawa sambhave seva sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata Naparo parang nikubeta nati manyeta katanchi kanchi Biaro sanabadega sanya nyanya manya sadukamicheya Mataya tang yang putang ayus Ayusa ekaputang anurake evam pisababute sumana sangbhavari abarimanang mettancha sabbalokasming manasang bhavaye abarimanang udang ado chatiriyanja hasabatang averang asapatang Titancarang nisino va sayano va yavatassa vigatamidu etang sating ariteya brahmametang viharang idamahu titincha nubhagam asilava dasanena sampanno Kame suvaneya gedang nahi jatu kabbaseyang punareti Etena satchavajena sotute hotu sabada Etena satchavajena sabarogo vinasatu Etena sachavajena hotu te jaya mangalam. Okay, blessing verses. Sabityo vivajantu sabarogo vinasatu Mate bhavantantarayo sukhiti gayoko bhava Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata Sabba Buddha Nubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu Sabba Mangalang Rakantu Sabba Devata Sabba Dhamma Nubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu Sabba Mangalang Rakantu Sabba Devata Sabba Sangha Nubhavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te. Okay, sharing of the merits. Akasata chabhumata deva naga mahitika Punyang tang anamoditva chiram rakantu sasanam. Akasata jabumata devanaga mahitika. Punyantang anamoditva chiram rakantu desanam. Akasata jabumata devanaga mahitika. Punyantang anamoditva chiram rakantu mamparam. Get the aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hoto yavani ibana patiya. Idang me punyang asakaya asavakaya hotu sabaduka pamuchatu. Okay, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, to finish up, we can bow 3 times to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, so we'll be all getting back together again at 7 p.m. So I'll see you all then.
Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you.
Sadhu,
Thank you,
sadhu.
Bhante.
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you.
Sadhu, 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 sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante.